Hello, everybody. It's Jeffrey, and welcome back to 14 Horror Stories. And this is where we left off last time. So, I hope you enjoy.
The TV screen was showing, so I was about to start making a romantic atmosphere. But then I heard a knock at the door.
Well, there it goes.
I got pretty pissed off as it interrupted, but got up anyway and opened the door. We lived with one of our friends, so at the moment, I thought it would be my friend. But to my surprise, it was a man around the same age as me. He looked a little bit tired and was forcing a smile on his face. He was all sweating, and his eyes were red as if from crying.
Guys, after this
but it wasn't
video,
my business to ask.
We will be continuing Toss the Turtle.
Oh, hello, the stranger said with a wide smile, taking his hand out for me to shake. Hi, I said, looking at his hand and back at him. Can I use your bathroom, please? He asked, still having this huge smile plastered on his face. Before I could say anything, though, Dan came behind me and told the guy that, indeed, he could use the bathroom. The man went in there, and Dan and I just went back to the couch and waited for him. Then I heard some sounds, like water pouring in the bathtub. After 10 minutes, I slowly started to get curious, as he didn't come out yet. I told Dan that I should check on him, but he told me to wait a little bit more. So I just waited, and 20 minutes later, he didn't come out. There was just silence in the bathroom.
Probably killed himself in there or something.
After 30 minutes, well, Dan decided that he'd check the bathroom. However, having a bad feeling, I went along with him just to be sure that nothing happened to him. Hey, is everything all right? I knocked at the door at the bathroom, but there was no response. I repeated the actions, but this time I knocked louder and yelled. Dan told me to wait a little longer, but I refused.
These are so scary.
I pressed on the handle of the door, expecting it to be locked, but to my surprise, it wasn't. I couldn't believe what I saw in front of me.
Yep.
To my horror, there was blood splattered on the floor everywhere, and the bathtub was filled up with a red liquid, as well with a lifeless body in it. The smell of blood filled the bathroom, and I wondered how I couldn't smell that outside. I told Dan to call 911 while I went over to the body to check his pulse. But when I got closer to it, I noticed that a razor blade was shoved deep in his neck. He was just dead. After half an hour, the 911 arrived with the cops. They took his body and we had to give our report to the cops. To this day, I became more paranoid about a stranger. Especially, I'm positive that letting a stranger use your bathroom is not safe and just nonsense.
Well, you probably
so
shouldn't.
Don't let the stranger come
In your house in the
ever.
first place.
This happened to me last summer. My best friend and I went to Ibiza for a week. Once we checked into our hotel on the first day, we threw our bags in our room and drove our rented car to the nearest supermarket. On our way there, we talked about the hotel, which was located in the very old suburban part of the city.
A hotel.
It was really dirty. It just had an overall weird...
Okay, so like last time, when we make a prediction, I think what's going to happen is there's going to either be like a ghost or a killer in the hotel.
Weird vibe to it. My friend was really bummed out about it, but we agreed that it wasn't going to ruin our excitement for this trip. Later that night, around 3 a.m., after coming back from a club to the area where we stayed, we couldn't find our hotel. We were completely drunk and probably walked around the streets in circles. My friend laughed a lot, stopped, and then pointed at a tall garden fence. Through it, we saw the hotel building.
So
it was right behind the garden, so without putting much thought into it, we tried to climb over the fence. My friend managed to succeed, but I fell and hurt my right leg quite a bit. He helped me up, and we stood in the middle of a bunch of green bushes. What the? My friend murmured all of a sudden. I looked up, and there were a bunch of tombstones. We were standing right between two walls, and at the end of the walls there was a small chapel. The door was wide open, and from a distance,
This is creepy.
we could see that it was full of lit-up candles. I was about to ask my friend why the lights were
I get
on,
scared easily, so.
but that drunk idiot suddenly started to laugh and walked toward the chapel with big, awkward steps. Due to my injured leg, I couldn't really catch up with him. I almost felt like puking, so I looked down for a moment, and when I looked up again, he was standing inside the chapel.
Why?
I took a few more steps and stopped as I saw his face look completely gray. "What's wrong?" I asked, but he gave me no response. Suddenly, he raised his hand and signaled that I should back off and be quiet. He leaned his face a bit forward, as if he was trying to see something in the room. At that point, I was really scared, so I just took as many steps back as I could while still looking at him. Then, I heard something. The sound of footsteps, maybe 4 or 5 people, was directly in front of him. He immediately turned around and started to sprint as fast as he possibly could while yelling, "Run! Run! Go!" I could hear the footsteps getting closer and closer, and whoever was chasing me was yelling some words in Latin. My friend caught up to me just as I was about to climb the fence. He helped me out and gave me a push forward. The footsteps were still right behind us. However, when we hit the ground on the other side of the fence and looked back between the bars into the green bushes,
There was nothing there.
there was no one to be seen. No one to be heard. As frightened as we were, we glanced in every direction, looking for them. But there was nothing. We then got back on our feet and eventually went back to the hotel. Our legs were shivering. My friend entered the lobby first, and as I was just about to enter too, I looked back at the street we just came from and saw 5 figures standing in the darkness. They wore long black clothes and all stared directly at me. I got scared, so I immediately got in and went up to my room. Our hotel room was located on the 5th floor, so I looked down the window into the streets.
This is pretty weird.
But I couldn't see any of the figures. I remained extremely paranoid during the rest of our stay, but we never encountered anything similar. Even to this day, we haven't talked about the incident.
That's definitely 20 hands right there. No. It would be 10 hands. Never mind.
This happened about 4 years ago, in December of 2015.
All right, we'll watch 2 more stories.
Me and 5 of my friends have our own business editing photos and videos for social media content creators. And because of this, we tend to have a lot of spare time on our hands. We used to go on road trips to a local lake that has a few nice spots to camp at, and a ski resort. We usually went there on our days off. One week, the 6 of us finished all of our projects early, so we had a few days off.
Just like the movie.
We decided to drive to the lake. I won't be using their real names for obvious reasons, so I'll call them Kevin, Steven, Brittany, Katie, and Josh. Katie and Brittany rode in Katie's old sports car, and Steven and I rode on our motorcycles. Usually, Kevin and Josh took Steven's Jeep. But on this trip, Josh had just bought a new Sprinter van, which the previous owner had converted into a 2-person camper, so Kevin decided to ride with Josh. When we arrived, we skied, had some really delicious camping food, and listened to Josh brag about his new van. It was a pretty normal trip. On the last day, we all packed up to head home. About 2 hours into the trip back home, we were a little hungry, so we stopped at a gas station to grab some snacks. We all parked our vehicles outside and went into the gas station together, which was kind of foolish. We were in there maybe 4 or 5 minutes, and the car's door was left open the whole time. When we came outside, we had a huge shock waiting for us.
It got stolen.
Josh's van was gone. There was a huge dent on the side of Katie's car and another dent on the side of an old truck in the parking lot, which I assumed belonged to an employee. We were so panicked at that moment, so we immediately called the police. But since we were a little off the grid, the police took 15 minutes to arrive, and by then, We knew the chances of them being able to find Josh's van was slim to none. The scariest thing about it was that Kevin brought his work laptop on the trip, and I knew that Kevin didn't have a password set up on it.
Oh, that's tragic.
We waited for another 2 or so hours while the police searched the area, but they couldn't find anything. They told us to go home, and they would contact us if they found the stolen van. Kevin and Josh rode with the girls in Katie's car, while Steven and I rode our motorcycles, following them very closely. We didn't stop once during the remaining 3-hour trip home. Fast forward 2 or 3 weeks later, we received a frantic call from Josh. He said that the police contacted him and that the van had been found. All 6 of us showed up to see the van, and the van had somehow been rolled on its side and was left in a ditch near the highway, about an hour from where it had been stolen. Once they got it out of the ditch and flipped it upright, the police let us look inside to see if we could salvage any personal items. Sure enough, Kevin's laptop was gone, along with a set of kitchen knives that Josh had used for making kebabs. The most disturbing thing, though, was that once we got the busted driver's side door open, we saw that both seats were stained a deep dark red in multiple places, and the dashboard had slash marks all over it. At that point, we were really afraid of the van. Josh let the police take the van for further inspection, but we never heard what happened to it, or who the blood belonged to.
Oh my God, ads. Alright, ad over. Okay, this will be the last story that I go over. True horror
My name is
story about a
Lewis, and I live in Switzerland.
I honestly can't wait to
This
do
story
Thomas
happened
the Turtle
5 years
again.
ago during the winter holidays. It was an icy cold
got
day,
to
and the
finish
snow was
this
falling
video.
continuously, so we had to warm the house all day long with the
If you guys don't
firewood,
like these
putting it
videos,
into
tell
the
me, I won't do
fireplace.
them anymore, but if you do,
My
comment
dad
down
told
below,
us all the
and I
time that
will
we should
continue
take
to
care
do
of the
them.
firewood. However, for the next days, we didn't do anything but just played Nintendo.
Okay.
Eventually, we
Tell me
noticed
guys
late
if I talk
around
too
9
much or
p.m.
talk too less.
that we had run out of wood. Dad got angry. So, as a punishment, he sent me and my older sister to the local lumberjack who was famous in the area. His shop was located 1.5 kilometers away from our house.
1.5 kilometers.
He was a really tall guy with a long beard and wore a black and white lumberjack shirt as a classic lumberjack.
Classic
Anyway,
lumberjack.
at first he seemed very talkative. We ordered 2 bags full of wood, which were about 50 kilograms. He said,
Yeah, I don't know those
"Okay,
measurements.
hold on. It'll take about 15 minutes to cut and wrap everything." All of a sudden, my sister had to go to the restroom. He said that he would let her know where the toilet is, so she followed him.
And she never
I was waiting
returned.
for about 15 minutes, and then I noticed the place was silent. I saw neither my sister nor the man. I called my sister's name, but there was no answer. Then I got a message from my dad that if we bought the wood, then we should come home immediately. According to the local news, the police are looking for a serial killer in the village
God.
50 kilometers from here. Dad also attached a picture, and unfortunately, he looked very similar to the lumberjack. My heart dropped.
I can already tell this is just
I wanted to scream, but then he came with the bag of wood suddenly. He was smiling, but I could feel that something was weird. He looked joyful. "Please, ask me where's your sister," he said and winked at me. "She's certainly not far away from you." Then I noticed the red stains on his shirt.
Ooh.
I nervously opened a wood sack, and the pink hair clip of my sister came out. I was full of anger. I grabbed the wooden bag with all my strength and hit the man. He screamed and fell on the floor, and
Good,
I
he
pulled out
deserved
my
it.
pocket knife and stabbed him. 2 or 3, many times. Suddenly, I heard a loud scream out of nowhere. "Stop, Lewis!" It was my sister. "That was a prank!" She was crying. I couldn't think straight. My head was all messed up. What have I done? I killed the wrong guy. I dropped the knife and stared at his cold body. But then I recognized that I had no time. I knew that we had to get rid of this body quickly while we were still alone in the shop without employees or customers. So I quickly looked around and found a hidden room, which was locked. We kicked the door and pushed him inside. And we were about to turn on the light in the room to find a cover, but then what I found was a huge shock. The room was full of people who had been cut in several pieces, and the floor was covered with blood. The lumberjack was the real serial killer. We were so terrified that we quickly covered him with some fabric and then ran out of the shop. We ran home as fast as we could. My dad asked us what happened, but we couldn't tell our parents anything.
Oh, but you could tell the whole story.
Since that day, we always made sure that we keep enough wood before the heavy snow. And I'm still wondering if the police found all the bodies at that shop.
Probably not. Okay, guys, the next episode we will finish them off, and my bad for swearing. I only did it once, and I will never do it again. My bad. Thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe, like the video, and have a great rest of your day.